Well, here is something I have been looking at recently. I have been drawn, oh, there we go, seagulls, yeah, you can see the two seagulls there. I have been drawn to this kind of thing for some reason, to oil rigs, and particularly the North Sea of late. Here you can see this person's showing what it's like here out on the oil rig, and I think it's a time where they were having a storm and they were waiting to get back home, and they were just kind of doing a little bit of, camera work, showing everybody what it's like out there, and during their kind of like time off. So very interesting indeed. I just love these videos so much. I was watching a different one which I'll maybe share with you another time, and it's actually with regards to a boat out at sea during one of the storms on the North Sea. Just typically what it's like for sailors out there on the open sea. It was absolutely wonderful. Okay. One thing I thought is that people that have to work for that level of time out there on the oil rigs, I think maybe perhaps they would be primed and maybe a little bit more capable with dealing with the pandemic and lockdown, for example, because they have like a whole entire time for like 1 month in the one spot. So yeah, they'd be pretty primed. Amazing stuff. Okay, let's head on to today's video. Chronicles, and it's 2 Chronicles 6, 2 Chronicles 7, and I am also going to explain something that happened that I have no... Oh my goodness, that is a really beautiful white seagull. Anyway, just gone past here, but never mind. Let's go back to this. I have no evidence as to why this happened. I have asked a certain person here, did you move this Bible? And they were just like, no, why would I do that? And they'd have to be very proficient. They would have to be very, very reading the Bible. Which, unless they're hiding it, and some people can, but unless they're hiding it, no. I've got the word, it says Satan, which I'm being drawn specifically to there. Holy Lord of God. Okay, so I'm going to tell you, it's up to the book of Job. And I had left it specifically at a place where I just opened it because I wanted to know, what to read from today, and I'm very kind of easeful like that. And I wanted to focus on 2 pieces now. I've read the Bible time and time again, read through it, but what I like to do is be drawn to something that will be a particular importance, and it's always 100% in accuracy when let me say this, it's always 100% accurate in the realm of accuracy. Okay, when I open the Bible, it's always at a specific pinpointed point that's deeply meaningful at that time. And I'm seeing the word captivity here. It's been brought up. And many people can feel like that during the pandemic. But I'm sure that many people can feel like that whether it is a pandemic or not, in some shape and form of captivity. We are captive in good ways, but that's the point. Are we captive to something that is good, or are we captive instead to this word which just really pointed out so clearly in the book of Job, Satan? We are really going to have to go through a lot here. What I'm seeing is the word feareth. An upright man that feareth God. Okay. We're going to be looking at that. Now, Job is a typical story of someone who puts the law 100% first, and by the law, absolutely 100% righteous. However, this type of person is attacked by the satanic realm because, well, many people believe is that someone who's very righteous and very God-fearing is very much feared by the devil, the satanic realm. And at that pinnacle, at that high point of placing God first, that is the type of person that, I'm getting the word strength here, that level of strength is the type of person that really makes the satanic realm, just makes it difficult, doesn't it? Because they're doing everything right. And they have so much, someone with that level of strength clearly can have a lot of influence. And if it's a lot of influence to win souls to God and to take people to where they need to be spiritually and soulfully, even although, albeit not perfectly, because it was just looking at the law only and not resting in that of obviously Christ, because we're looking at, way before Christ comes into the world here. When we look at Job, this is the Old Testament. And we're going to come back to that in a minute or two, but you can understand there what we're really looking at. We're looking at what I talked about in the podcast today, and also something that has been coming up across different subtopics with regards to divine and temporal law, even into the topic of marriage. So something that you might think is should be nice, high-flying, great, fun, wonderful. That's what people think about love, and the topic of marriage should just therefore automatically, concur. But it depends what and who you're married with and into, whether it's through, oh Lord God, the words that I'm drawn to here, oh Lord God, to God, and with God, through God, as a precursor, a prerequisite, having a relationship that is very strong with God already through prayer, and understanding that it's being passed down through the fathers, through the forefathers of the royal lineage. Or if you're being tempted because you are in a very good position to influence people to do what's right, Satan may have tried to take you off your path, and may do that by ways of trickery in and around the topic of marriage. That's just one of the many areas, and we know that wasn't Job's story, but I'm referring to the fact that this is going to be one of the many topics that I'm going to be referring to. And this is something of someone's video that I've been listening to, and God always brings me to something for a particular reason, and I absolutely understand that. And so the person whose video I was is someone who has been commenting on public figures who are in the media and their particular marriage and different situations surrounding it. Excuse this noise of washing, cleanliness. I guess it's giving a good message there with regards to purification. Goodness, it's about to take off. Okay, now with regards to commenting on, I have not watched or listened to anything with regards to that marriage in its entirety, or with regards to anything to do with a recent interview in its entirety. I've heard snippets, I've looked and seen what's reported in the news, but I very much understand that that can be an absolute load of utter rubbish and nonsense. So I'm not at that level where I would just assume that that's gospel. So in any case, with that balanced approach, that is how I will, look at the surrounding topics, not specifically based on the two people personally, but with regards to the wider context and how it affects the general population as a whole entirety. But the person that has been doing probably the opposite to me has been going through everything with seemingly a fine tooth comb, going through all interviews, all things in the paper, other types of media. That's not what I'm doing. But in any case, I've listened to what they have said and the points that they have made. I wondered why there was such an obsession with regards to them, to the point of going through every single detail of what's being said, interviews, etc. And I came up with some of my own opinions, but at the same time, I'm being very, very open with regards to that too, to a certain extent. I have read background details with regards to that person, and again, I don't take everything that is written as absolute with regards to them. I don't take everything that's said about them as gospel either, because I have to really put God first and be wise. So, in any case, that particular person talking about all these, of which I'm sure this will be heard by the right types of people in the right types of ways, and they will understand this. It will be perfectly clear. Now, that particular person made some very good points with regards to English temporal law, and some other points on different things like the sharing of information and do you really want a private life but then you share your intricate details with someone. So points like this that are very valid have been brought up to really study and consider. The background of that person that is making these points, and what I have heard with regards to their story, again, not taking it for gospel, but what I have read on face value, is really quite sad as to what they have been through. And no doubt that has formed some sort of a reason for perhaps the way that they are tackling the subject with regards to that couple in the media, in the here and now. In any case, what I have stated is entirely through prayer and time taken with God to really make us think about this. First and foremost, the presence of God in a marriage, I've got the word congregation here, isn't just about the congregation of people and the necessity of a congregation or a wide group of people to be there. But on the other hand, It is not hiding it away from the congregation either. So it's all about the internal intent behind everything. To put so much emphasis on the presence, say, of another person, a member of clergy, or being in a ceremonial building, a church, with clergy, and basing all the emphasis on that alone as being a point of being legally married, is pushing the emphasis entirely on the exterior and not looking at the heart and the soul and God within that should be directing it and should be justifying it. The presence of God is absolutely vital in each person for them, therefore, to be able to come together in a godly marriage. When that is true, let's look at Mary and Joseph for an example, a straightforward example. Both Mary and Joseph were married by the presence and the strand, therefore, the strand of God being present with both of them and preordaining them to be together. Now, they therefore did not require any justification by outside means. Going to a church, having an extra person there, a member of clergy, to bring God somehow magically into it, was not a requirement because God had already ordained them and was present with them. God is the justifier and should never be questioned. Now, that aside, does that mean that every single person that goes to a church outside of themselves to get married is invalid? I had to think about this. And again, it depends on each unique coupling. Well, you would say, what's the requirement then? If God has ordained this, two people know this to be true because they are spiritually bound in God, so they have a marriage already. They're very aware of having God. They're not externalizing God as in a church or in a member of clergy that is not that is, therefore they really truly know that they've been brought together. What's the point? What is the necessity for anything extra? And you'd be very right to ask that. There really wouldn't normally be any necessity for anything extra at all. But the reason that people do, there's a variety of reasons to celebrate it, of course, which is perfectly acceptable if you are doing so in the righteousness of God. Because in the Old Testament, it does even say not to make an oath to any man, any human, only to God. Anything extra on top of what you're going to say, if you overcomplicate it, is said to be almost akin to evil. So the only way that you could really do something like that and be valid is if you're called specifically by God to do that, and you're walking in righteousness doing that. But you wouldn't be saying that is the only legal way, or that is the legal way. You would already be justified because you would already have God. But if you don't already recognize that, then you're obviously already invalid. Right. Okay. So that's the defining factors there, which I'll go into greater depth and detail with. Okay, so I'm going to have a look at 2 Chronicles 6. And the king turned his face and blessed the whole congregation of Israel. And all the congregation of Israel stood. And he said, Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, who hath with his hands fulfilled that which he spake with his mouth to my father David, saying, Since the day that I brought forth my people out of the land of Egypt, I chose no city among all the tribes of Israel to build an house in, that my name might be there. Neither chose I any man to be a ruler over my people Israel. But I have chosen Jerusalem, that my name might be there, and have chosen David to be over my people Israel. Now it was in the heart of David my father to build an house for the name of the Lord God of Israel. But the Lord said to David my father, Forasmuch as it was in thine heart to build an house for my name, thou didst well in that it was in thine heart. Notwithstanding thou shalt not build the house, but thy son which shall come forth out of thy loins, he shall build the house for my name. The Lord therefore hath performed his word that he hath spoken. For I am risen up in the room of David my father, and am set on the throne of Israel, as the Lord promised, and have built the house for the name of the Lord God of Israel. And in it have I put the ark, wherein is the covenant of the Lord that he made with the children of Israel. And he stood before the altar of the Lord in the presence of all the congregation of Israel, and spread forth his hands. For Solomon had made a brazen scaffold of 5 cubits long, and 5 cubits broad, and 3 cubits high, and had set it in the midst of the court. And upon it he stood, and kneeled down upon his knees before all the congregation of Israel, and spread forth his hands towards heaven, and said, O Lord God of Israel, there is no God like thee in the heaven, nor in the earth, which keepest covenant and showest mercy unto thy servants, that walk before thee with all their hearts. And so this part of what happens here, in that Solomon is in front of the congregation in a way that is blessing the entire people. And so that is what any type of gathering of congregation, if we even link this to the lengths of a marriage, is really all about. It's in the sharing of something which is never hidden anyway, as we know, way on into the New Testament and those that have Christ, obviously. But looking back, this is the idea of why a good person with the right intentions would want to share this, because it's very clear that it is a blessing to the world, to the congregation. And so that's the reason for sharing it. But if that reason is not the same reason, and if there is not peace and a want to bless everyone by this, if, in other words, if it's not by God and it's just about the celebration, then it becomes invalid because it's not in the proper arena of godliness. So it's all about intention and why you're sharing something. But again, the point also being, with regards to marriages and anything that's shared, is also the protection as well with regards to people involved. And I'm drawn to the words, hear thou from the heavens. So if someone is wanting to have a particular type of intention which is not great, it's not to say that they're going to just do that in private. Some people have been known to do that in the congregation. So it's all heart posture, and it's the reality of what's going on spiritually and in the mind and the hearts and souls of people. and whether or not they really have the covenant. Because remember, Judas Iscariot was also in their miniature congregation and dipped with the Lord. So it's not about coming to the Lord and enjoying the Eucharist or the physical aspect, right? There's more to it than that. What God looks to is what's going on in the heart and the soul of someone. It's really, really important. It's really that serious. Let thy saints rejoice in goodness is what I'm seeing now here. Slowly. I just have to share these times when I am drawn to a particular point. There's usually a very good reason for it. And I will never deny that. There's always a very good reason. And you'll see that in my last video, how things happened or certain words were said and then something happened. Every single thing that God has allowed, there is a really important reason for. I'm now seeing the word enemies. So sometimes to highlight enemies or the enemy, to highlight the devil and the devil's minions sometimes too. Okay, so in any case, I'm saying the importance of worshipping and praising God. Yes, God for all that wisdom and the sharing of all of it, really. And the ability really to discern. So yeah, but the main point of congregational gathering is that the thought is that it is brought to the light and therefore is shared and nothing can be hidden, and it means that other people can say yes or no to the situation occurring and it's fully understood. But the thing is, something like that almost in and of itself, if it's for that reason, almost kind of comes with an already existing lack of trust. And that's the tricky bit about it, because we don't want to encourage people to just automatically think that the lack of a congregation is a good thing either, or that doing things privately is necessarily a good thing either, especially if they don't understand that God is here, God is always seeing everything, and they think that it can be hidden or there's a reason why they want to hide it or they want to walk in the dark with things. So it's a very fine balance. It's really all about, as I say, the heart posture. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to return to this. I was feeling like I could get lost into other particular things that were in occurrence there, but I'm not going to allow that to happen. In any case, this is what I'm going to be sharing about. Number 10 is particularly highlighted for me, this being risen up in the room of David, and the prayer and the intentions that are set there, so important.